Today I'm going to get into everything you need to know about creating drum bounce, where you should be placing your drums, how to make your drums hit harder, how to keep your drums interesting, the best effects to use with your drums, etc. Started, I've just got a loop in right here. This is from my sample pack acid. Cut out actually just the verse part here, so we're just gonna keep it really simple. And the first thing you're gonna wanna do is with whatever sounds you're using, before you even add your drums, I always like to go in and just cut out some low end, fruity EQ, and cut out everything typically up to about 200 hertz, as this is where your 808's going to hit. The next thing you really need is quality drum sounds. You don't need thousands and thousands of drum sounds. Like just a couple really good kits will go a long way. If you watch any of my videos personally, I really just use 3 drum kits. And I'm able to make all different styles of beats just because all the drums I created within my kits have already been mixed how I want them to be mixed, and the drums stand out and cut through the mix because they were created to do so. So you don't need thousands of different drum sounds or anything like that. You just need a few good quality kits. Now when it comes to actually adding the drums, for most beats, you're pretty much always gonna have your snare clap or snap in the exact same place, unless you're doing like a drill beat or kind of like dance hall beat or something like that. Pretty much right here. For this, you can play around. I don't think this clap specifically works for this, so maybe I'll go and add a snare. Or you can just go in and add a perk here even. Completely switches up the vibe. I don't think this sounds very good, but hi-hats are really crucial because they really help establish a rhythm for your beat. I don't overdo it and add like 30 different hi-hat rolls. You can do that if you want, but you just have to make sure that whatever you're doing, it's very consistent and constant in the rhythm that you're creating. So what I mean by that is, let's just go here and go to fill every 2 steps. Like, it's a very predictable rhythm. You know exactly when the hi-hat's going to hit. And so when you're adding rolls and stuff like that, you still want it to feel predictable for the listener or the artist. So in order to actually keep your hi-hats interesting, you can either take away sounds or add in additional rolls. For taking away sounds, right here is going to be a pretty good spot, typically. The rhythm can either be something that's really redundant like this, and so it's a very predictable rhythm. Every little section right here is the exact same kind of hi-hat. What you can also do when you're kind of creating these rhythms is you can have it stretched out a little bit more. So maybe we take away one right here, but we leave that note in right there. And then over here, we take away one. Really, we're just expanding the rhythm right there when we do that. Now, if you want to take it a different way and add in additional hi-hat, one of the ways that I like to do it is I'll typically just go in here. And my favorite one in terms of adding bounce is going to 2/3 steps. I think this is the most common one that a lot of popular producers will use just because they know it creates the most bounce. And then I just go to this paintbrush right here and I'll just kind of listen through for little pockets and make sure it's repetitive. So right after your snare hits is a good spot, like right here. We just did that. Or right on this grid line right here is one of my favorite spots. So a little bit after the first snare hits. So let's just do that right here. And then let's skip over this one and add the rhythm down here. And then to kind of change it up and keep it interesting, I usually like to add a change towards the end. So right here, we skip adding this to right here and then have a big space all the way to this bar over here. And so what we're gonna do right here is we're just gonna copy this over. It's just hitting again on this spot right here, and it just kind of resolves the loop. And then if you wanna even make it a little bit more interesting, highlight these right here, and let's just have the velocities go down. Versus this right here. And today I'm just using my drum kit Graffiti. It's been my go-to drum kit for the past couple of months, as well as using my other drum kits here and there, but this is probably the one I use the most as it's the most versatile. Works for any different type of beats. I've already mixed it and put a bunch of effects on the drums, so they always cut through the mix, and yeah, it's just a really great kit, so definitely feel free to check that out. All right, so now in terms of adding like perks and stuff like that, let me show you some good pockets to place them. Places like right here and right here. And that's a really common bounce that's in a lot of really popular songs. And you can really create a bunch of variations with this. Like I could just have the note playing right here. Or do something like this. It's really that simple when it comes to perks and stuff like that. Next, we have open hats, and you can also put perks in these spots or sound effects, etc. right at the beginning. Sounds pretty good usually. It's like a nice way to kind of reset things. And then another really good spot for open hats is just somewhere like right here. So right after it first starts. And the 808 is arguably the most important drum of just any drums for many reasons. It's kind of like the heartbeat of the beat, so you have to make sure that it's sitting correctly. Just because if you do something wrong with your 808, it's going to completely ruin your beats. And so right here, I've got this Go 808 from my kit. What you're gonna wanna do is go to your 808 and make sure it's tuned to C. All of my 808s are tuned to C, and honestly, any good pack is already gonna have this done. And all you have to do is go to your 808, right click, go to edit and audio edit, and go and right click again, go to regions, then go down to detect pitch regions, and right here it says it's in C, so I know my 808 is in tune. And if it was, let's say, C sharp, all you need to do to tune your 808 is go right here and then click on C sharp right there. Play with the out knob, which is going to make it shorter. Another thing you can do if you want, just be careful with this, is you can go to clip and then push boost up, and this kind of just distorts it. So the first thing you'll want to do for your 808s though, go here and then make sure it's set to cut itself, because if you don't do that, it's going to sound really like muffled and bad. For example, if we didn't have it set to cut itself, you hear that distortion, versus if we do set it to cut itself. You're going to want to place the 808 on all of the root notes or whatever beat you're making. In my sample pack, I have the root notes for each sample, so I just threw that in here. I have the MIDI for it, comes in the pack. So I'm just gonna follow all these root notes right here. And basically what root notes are is, let's say instead of just these root notes I have right here, if these were chords, the root note would just be the bottom note of that chord. And so if you have like a chord progression here, then just use the bottom note of your chord progression. And if it for some reason sounds weird, then just move it up to the different notes within the chord, and you should be able to find something that sounds good. Let's just start right here. No, I want to use those two notes. And then there's an E right here. And then I also like to always make sure that there's a slight variation. It just keeps it interesting for the listener. And so that's what I did right here. This E's hitting twice over here, and there's nothing hitting over here. And so one thing you can do to spice them up a little bit more if you want is, of course, you can go in and add some more cuts. Or what I like to do, I like to pop these up just an octave. So all you have to do is just select a certain part of the beat and then go to Control Up. And this is going to be playing on the same key, just an octave higher. And so it just adds a little bit of a dimension to the 808s. If you do add like rolls or anything like that, I definitely recommend adding it more towards the end of the bar, as there will already be like an established rhythm before it kind of goes a little bit crazier. Alright, so now onto the kick, and then we're going to get into some leveling and mixing and some effects you can use on your drum, which can be a big game changer for a lot of people. Usually with my kick, all I like to do is I'll copy the 808 over. I'll go in here, press Alt-K, and this will just put it all to C. Yours is probably going to look something like this if you've never done this. So all you do is just drag this over so just C is highlighted. And then usually what I'll do is I'll just go in and take out the kick in certain spots. I'll just make sure it's very consistent where I take out the kick so there's like a constant rhythm going. So I'm gonna highlight all my drums right here, and then just do Control-Shift-L to put them all right here. And the first thing I always like to do is like to center my kick, just because you want it hitting at the center of the mix. And then I'm just gonna go through and level it. And so I always like my kick to be like the loudest part of my beat along with my 808. And then I'll have the snare as like the loudest part after that. Percussions, it's kind of just based on how I feel, but they'll usually be a little bit quieter, especially like the open hat and the hi-hats. I'll have them sitting not too far in the background, but just so you can hear them like just enough. So I'll just turn everything off. Good spot. And then I'll usually spread this out a little bit. That just pushes it out to the sides a little more. And whatever sample you're using or melodies you create, you want to make sure that they're not the loudest part of your beat. Now, in terms of some effects you can use, there's a few that I'd recommend that are just stock plugins. One thing you can use is if you want a little bit more distortion on your 808, pretty fast distortion, and you can just play with a bunch of these. I usually like to go to the heat, and then I just turn it down right here. If you just take all your drums aside from your 808, and sometimes I'll bring the kick in as well, depends on the beat, but let's just take these ones and then just go down here and then go to route to this track only, name this drum bus. So now we can just throw whatever effects we want just on these drums that we selected. So everything but the kick and 808. Got some reverb. I like the drum room setting. Very least have a Fruity Soft Clipper on here. A lot of debate in the producer community between whether you should use a Fruity Soft Clipper or if you should just go into your limiter, turn the ceiling all the way up, and then just play with the saturation knob until it's not clipping. So let's hear what you guys think sounds better. This right here or this? Really, the choice is yours. And another thing you can do if you really want to is if you just put some sort of EQ, pull up certain levels. So like right here where this 808's hitting, bring that up a little bit. Maybe bring up some of these highs where the hi-hat's hitting. Really just play around with it. There's no exact way to do everything.